Det gør jeg også. Men nu det hedder, jeg prøver bare at finde det bedste tidspunkt at streame. Det er mere det. Men jeg har fundet ud af om aftenen, der er det det bedste at streame på. Ja, men det var Arthur fra i går. Oh my god. Han vil bare se min stream igen. Ja. Fam, we are live on the computer, on the MacBook. Ja, men jeg forstår dig godt. Altså, du ved, en stream, du ved, altså. En kommentar. Altså, hvad skal jeg gøre? Give en timeout? Ja, det har jeg ikke mods til. Ja, du har stadig tv. Nå, BH, ja. Nej, det ved jeg ikke, om han er gået. Er du stadig BH? BH, tag det til mig, talk to me. Han er jo i England jo, så det kan være, at de skulle videre. Er vi ready for the transition? Kan I høre mig, fam? Kan I høre mig på den næste stream? Sober. Skal vi rulle ind? For jeg havde været sober. Hey venlig, skal vi rulle ind? Skal vi ryge lige? Hey venlig, skal vi rulle ind? Skal vi fyre lige? Hey, skal vi... Så har jeg 2 skærme, jeg kan kigge på. Damn. Okay, fint. Okay. Are we ready? See you guys. Hvad nu? Transition. Trans, not a single word. Okay. Vi er live. Vi ses. Okay, jeg prøver lige at tjekke, om alt kører her. Okay, jeg prøver lige at tjekke, om alt kører her. Okay. Super, det virker. Kamikaze. Sådan, let's go. Du er tilbage. Ja, hvad så, bro?
Stemte julen 24, der så jeg sådan her ud. Jeg var lige kommet hjem fra en stor julemiddag, og jeg var så træt af mit spejlbillede. En rigtig dadbot. Tyngdekraften, den havde fået frit spil, masser af fjedt på kroppen, og det skulle der laves om på. Så et halvt år senere, sommeren 25, der var jeg gået fra 83 kilo og ned til omtrent 70 kilo. Jeg havde altså tabt 13 kilo og så nu sådan her ud. Og det var jeg noget mere tilfreds med. Skuldre, arme, både triceps, biceps, endda en smule mave og også noget brystparti. Jeg føler virkelig, at der var sket en stor ændring. Jeg havde ikke nødvendigvis taget sindssygt mange muskler på, men jeg havde i hvert fald reduceret min fedtprocent grundigt, og jeg så noget mere markeret ud. Ikke at jeg overhovedet havde en fascinerende fysik, men min fedtprocent var i hvert fald skudt godt og grundigt ned, og jeg var rigtig tilfreds med resultatet. Men jeg var stadig, især når jeg tog en t-shirt eller en trøje på...
Hvad skal vi lave nu? Jeg tror vi kan reacte. Hvis I har nogle videoer eller nogle sange, I gerne vil vise mig, så viser I dem bare.
Men i hvert fald skulle
det er dejligt, fam. Det er dejligt.
Træningsmarker her i gang med.
Og en kat!
Man er lidt forvirret over udtrykkene. Så har man det, der hedder et ligevægtsindtag, hvilket er det antal kalorier, du lige præcis skal spise, for ikke at hverken tage på eller tabe dig. Det her tal, det kan eksempelvis være 2500 kalorier, men det kan stige eller falde alt afhængig af, hvor aktiv du er i løbet af dagen. Og dit specifikke ligevægtsindtagstal kan også være forskelligt alt afhængig af, om du er mand, om du er kvinde, din alder, aktivitetsniveau osv. Men i hvert fald så har jeg lagt under mit ligevægtsindtag, altså spist mindre end hvad kroppen den skal have for bare at vedligeholde sig selv. Og det vil sige, at jeg har tabt mig de her 13 kilo. Så nu skal jeg i gang med det modsatte, hvor jeg altså bulker og ligger over og spiser altså mere end det, jeg skal have, sådan at jeg kan opbygge min krop, og forhåbentlig vil det meste af det være muskler, i og med at jeg rent faktisk stimulerer muskelvækst, altså hypertrophy. Så skulle jeg gerne få noget muskel med, men det er svært ikke også at undgå at få en del fedt med. Men jeg har fået taget på meget endda, faktisk det hele. Ja, det her det er nemlig mig nu, eller det var det i hvert fald for en måneds tid siden, da jeg havde trænet i et år. Jeg var altså gået fra 83 kilo, kortet ned til 70, og så er jeg gået fra 70 op til 83 kilo igen. Så ja, på et år kan man sige, at jeg absolut ikke var noget nogen som helst vegne. Men så alligevel, fordi den her gang vejer jeg 83, men det skulle gerne være med nogle flere muskler, i stedet for den gang, hvor jeg vejede 83, hvor langt det meste af det bare var fjedt. Jeg ser dog ret kvapset ud her, synes jeg absolut. Og hvis man kigger tilbage på den gang, jeg vejede 70, altså 13 kilo mindre, hvordan i alverden kan det så give mening, at jeg nærmest så større ud, da jeg var 13 kilo mindre? Og det er den magiske effekt af at have en lavere fedtprocent. Hvis du har en lavere fedtprocent, som eksempelvis her, da jeg trænede lige omkring mit laveste, jeg tror jeg var lige en 71-72 kilo her, jamen så er musklerne bare mere defineret, og jeg har absolut ikke nogen god fysik, det er slet ikke der, vi skal. Men de er trods alt lidt mere defineret, end når man har en højere...
Hvad laver han? Han træner, bro.
Der bliver lidt for godt polstret og gemt inde bag fjettet. Så selvom du vejer en hel del mindre, så kan du altså stadigvæk se større ud, hvis bare din fedt...
Det jeg ser med...
Og vi kan også tage en sammenligning af, hvordan jeg så ud, når jeg vejer 83 nu, og hvordan jeg så ud, da jeg vejede 83 første gang. Og der synes jeg jo klart, der er en forskel i, at der i hvert fald er kommet noget med definition og muskler på, selvom jeg vejer akkurat det samme på de her to billeder. Det synes jeg er ret vildt. Men ja, jeg ville da rigtig gerne se ud, som jeg gjorde, da jeg var på mit laveste. Eksempelvis da jeg var på ruller, så jeg var rigtig godt tilpas. Jeg har faktisk sjældent, jeg tror faktisk aldrig nogensinde, jeg følte mig så godt tilpas. Igen, ikke at jeg havde nogen som helst god fysik, det siger jeg overhovedet ikke overhovedet. Men jeg var meget godt tilfreds med min fysik, og det var fedt, når man skulle på ferie, og man skulle i poolen, når man skulle vise sin krop lidt mere frem. Bare det her med at vise sin krop frem på video, kan jo også være en hel del grænseoverskridende. Og jeg var rigtig godt tilfreds med min krop på det her tidspunkt. Jeg kan huske, at især var et skud, hvor at jeg har sådan en house tour, jeg viser rundt, og så helt ubevidst faktisk. Og der kan man tro mig, hvad vil, men på bagkant ser jeg min definition i spejlet. Der er selvfølgelig rigtig godt downlighting her, men altså, man kan rent faktisk se lidt definition, og det synes jeg var en fed fysik, og det kan jeg godt savne at have. Det her, det var mig på noget af det laveste, jeg kom ned på. Det her, det var lige omkring 70, men nok noget af det laveste fedtprocent, jeg kom på. Man kan begynde sådan at ane en lille smule mavemuskler og bryst her, og jeg var godt tilfreds, men spinkel. Og derfor skulle der altså ske noget. Der skulle altså noget volumen på, efter jeg var cuttet ned. Der skulle nogle muskler på, og det var årsagen til, at jeg besluttede mig for at bulke op igen. Og fast forward 83 kilo. Nu, som I kan fornemme, kører det lidt i cykluser, fordi nu skal jeg til at cutte ned igen. Men ikke hele vejen ned til 70. Nej, jeg skal ned og ramme cirka den samme fedtprocent, som jeg havde før, og så ser jeg forhåbentlig noget mere imponerende ud, fordi at jeg har flere muskler på kroppen nu. Så hvis jeg rammer den samme fedtprocent, som jeg havde før, så ved jeg ikke, om jeg ender på måske sådan noget 74 kilo, føler jeg realistisk, måske sådan noget 74-75 kilo. Så jeg er blevet lidt tungere, måske en lille smule fedt, men en hel del flere muskler også. Og så tror jeg kommer til at se mere imponerende ud. Men det er så den lange grind, vi skal til nu og skære ned. Jeg kan også tydeligt mærke, at der er sket et eller andet ud over bare spejlet, fordi jeg er blevet stærkere. I starten, da jeg bænkede, der lå jeg med 50 kilo og strugglede og rystede i hele kroppen bare for at tage et par gentagelser med 50. Nu, som I kan se her, der ligger jeg og varmer op med 50 kilo, og jeg træner med 80 i sæt, i hvert fald når min skulder den vil makke ret. Og jeg havde også et mål i 25 om, at jeg ville bænke 100 kilo, og på årets aller sidste dag, faktisk nytårsaften om dagen, der smed jeg 90 kilo på, og følte mig faktisk sådan ret godt tilpas. Og jeg tog en gentagelse, men min skulder den var sgu godt nok lidt crunchy, og sammen med min anden træningsmarker, der valgte jeg simpelthen at lægge egoet til side og sige, nah, not today, så vigtigt er de 100 heller ikke for mig. Så jeg tog 90, som virkede sådan relativt okay, og så stoppede jeg ellers. Kunne jeg have taget 100 måske, men jeg blev også bare sådan lidt, altså, er det worth it at muligvis få en skade for de 100 kilo? Det synes jeg ikke, det var. Nu der ligger jeg med en 50-55 i incline set, og kan tydeligt mærke, at jeg er blevet stærkere, så det er også rart at kunne mærke på kroppen, at der rent faktisk er sket noget, det der med, at man kan mærke på musklerne, i stedet for udelukkende at bruge spejlet, at hey, jeg er blevet stærkere, der er rent faktisk sket noget med min krop, jeg har været igennem en transformation, og jeg kan flytte tungere ting nemmere nu. Så det er også en måde at ligesom få 2 streger under noget facit. En af mine absolut yndlingsmuskelgrupper er faktisk kendt med at blive triceps. Det er jo den klassiske disco pump med gunshowet. Suns out, guns out. Det er bicepsene. Det er curls for the girls, ikke? Men faktisk så er 2/3 af armen jo faktisk tricepsen, som sidder over bagpå. Så selvom det er fedt at have en god peak med ens bicepsøvelsen, det synes jeg simpelthen er en fornøjelse at træne dem. Derudover så er jeg gået fra 3 sæt til at gå til 2 sæt i rigtig mange af mine øvelser. Fordi ifølge hvad jeg i hvert fald har kunne research mig frem til, så er det en del nemmere at beholde muskler, end det er at opbygge dem. Så i stedet for at køre 3 lange hårde sæt, så kører jeg 2 hårde, tunge sæt, hvor jeg bare giver den alt, jeg har i 2 sæt. Fordi at du har generelt ikke så meget energi, når du er i cut, når du cutter ned. Du har jo en smule underskud i dit ligevægtsindtag. Du mangler en lille smule energi. Kroppen den nedbryder fedt for at få den energi. Du bliver lidt nemmere sådan udkørt og træt. Og der har det virkelig hjulpet mig at køre 2 sæt i stedet for 3. Især fordi motivationen for at gå hårdt til den og træne helt vildt, når man ved, at man ikke kommer til at tage en masse muskler på, den synes jeg faktisk er en lille smule barsk. Og jeg ved ikke, om det er bare sådan en mental ting. Og jeg ved heller ikke, om I overhovedet sådan kan følge mig, men min pointe er det der med, at man træner jo for at blive større, men altså det er det der pump.
Jeg er tilbage. Jeg skulle ikke ordne noget, men jeg kunne ikke ordne det.
Man står foran spejlet, man træner for at blive stor og stærk, ikke? Men under cut, der træner du faktisk bare for at vedligeholde dine muskler, for ikke at tabe muskler, men tabe fedt. Du stimulerer muskelvæksten, så kroppen ligesom får signaler om, at hey, du skal absolut...
Jeg svarer ikke kick, sådan rigtigt.
For at løfte tunge ting. Så lad os tage på fedten i stedet for.
Det er bare i orden.
Beholde musklerne, men ikke for at få dem større. Og det synes jeg faktisk godt kan være lidt hårdt, og jeg kan også mærke, at der nogle gange går 4 dage, jeg træner i stedet for bare 2 dage. Fordi at jeg skal jo alligevel bare vedligeholde dem. Selvom det jo er mindst lige så vigtigt, når jeg endelig har fået lidt muskler. Nu sørger jeg for, at jeg ikke mister dem. Men der er bare et eller andet mentalt i mig, det der med at tage gym og for at træne, for ikke at blive større. Fordi
How does a man take over a failing Real Madrid and within just one season turn them into the best football team in all of Europe? But how does this man achieve that, get sacked just 1 year later, and then how does this man return to that club after 6 years to do the exact same thing again, but this time making them even greater than before twice? Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid journey began in 2013, but by that point, he was already one of the greatest managers of all time and also had one hell of a playing career, so let me fill you in quickly. Like most top managers, Carlo was also a top player, having started his career in Parma, then moving to Roma, before reaching his career pinnacle with AC Milan, where he played for 5 years and lifted 2 Champions League trophies in 1988 and 1992, playing a key role in the team. He was a great midfielder, but unfortunately, his career had come to an end at the age of 33 because of recurring knee injuries, but it didn't take him long before he entered the next chapter of his life, because in 1992, he was named the manager of Regione, and he quickly began to earn his stripes on the touchline. So, after just 1 year there, he took the step to become the manager of Parma, and here's where he learned one of the most valuable lessons of his career, and one we see shining through his managerial style today. Carlo was set on his style of play, always opting for a 4-4-2 formation, so when he was offered one of the best players in the world in Roberto Baggio, he rejected him because he didn't fit the style. He realized this was a massive mistake, and from this moment onwards, he made sure that his tactics and management style would always shift to accommodate the players in the team, something which could be seen in all of his Real Madrid sides over the years. After Parma, he spent a couple of years at Juventus, where he managed Zinedine Zidane, the man who would later become his assistant coach at Real Madrid, and then Carlo finally landed the biggest job of his career thus far, as he was placed in charge of AC Milan. Here, he created one of the greatest football teams of all time, lifting 2 Champions Leagues in his 8-year stint there, which lasted from 2001 to 2009. But he cemented himself already as one of the greatest managers of all time, but his legacy would only grow from there. After Milan, he moved to Chelsea for 2 years, where he won the double, and then to PSG for 2 years, where he guided them to their first league title in almost 20 years. And this is when a job in Spain opened. Jose Mourinho had just been sacked from Real Madrid after taking the club to a league title and then running the team to the ground, leaving them trophyless in the 2012-13 season as Barcelona were back on top of Spanish football. When Carlo received the call to manage the biggest football club in the world, this was a no-brainer, but this also was not an easy task. This team wasn't in a great place, finishing the previous season with big issues in the dressing room after a fallout with the manager. And despite the size of the club, they hadn't been dominating football for a while, having gone over 10 years without a Champions League. But the day Ancelotti arrived, everything was going to change. Now, by all means, this was not a bad Real Madrid team. They just lacked direction, which is exactly what Ancelotti gave them. When he arrived, it was also announced that Zinedine Zidane would become his assistant coach, and right away, Carlos started to make some changes to the squad. He offloaded some big names like Carvalho, Essien, Kaká, Higuain, and Ozil, and he used the funds to bring in Carvajal, Casemiro, Isco, Iyaramendi, and most notably of all, Gareth Bale, for a world record transfer fee to become Real Madrid's latest Galactico signing. Now, the squad was in place, and Ancelotti quickly discovered his preferred formation with Casillas in net, a backcourt consisting of Carvajal, Pepe, Ramos, and Marcelo, Xabi Alonso holding the midfield with Modric and Di Maria playing ahead of him, and then the deadly attacking trio of Bale, Benzema, and Cristiano Ronaldo. This season began in August 2013 with a 2-1 victory over Betis, but they began the Champions League campaign in even better fashion with a 6-1 thumping over Galatasaray, with a Ronaldo hat-trick, a Benzema brace, and an Isco goal. This hat-trick from Ronaldo was not uncommon and was the story of the season as he was scoring goals left, right, and center throughout the entire year. Ancelotti's men continued on this good vein of form until they faced Atletico Madrid in September, where they were defeated 1-0 in a game that would be so decisive come the end of the season. This Atletico-Real rivalry was at its peak this year, and we'll be talking about it a lot more soon. But things went from bad to worse for Real Madrid. Madrid went unbeaten through all of November and December, meaning come the new year, they were through to the Champions League knockout stages, still in the Copa del Rey, and were climbing up the La Liga table at a rapid rate. Things were clicking under Ancelotti, and hope was brewing in Madrid, something that was so distant the year before under Mourinho. Come March of this year, and La Liga was a 3-horse race between rivals, but the title came down to 2 crucial games that month. Real Madrid dropped points against Atletico, and then in the second La Liga El Clasico, they were beaten 4-3 with a Messi hat-trick in what is considered to be a controversial game. And then, come May, still with a chance at the title, Real Madrid only managed to win 1 out of 4 games, meaning Atletico Madrid topped La Liga, Barcelona came second, and Real Madrid trailed in third, just 3 points off the top spot, meaning these crucial defeats cost them the league title. But in the cup competition, Ancelotti's men were able to get revenge on both their rivals, with the first happening in April as they played the Copa del Rey final against Barcelona. Real Madrid finished this game 2-1 thanks to goals from Di Maria and Bale, with Bale's being one of the most iconic solo goals in football history. So, just like that, Ancelotti's men picked up their first trophy of the season. But now, let's talk about the biggest prize of them all, as this Real Madrid side conquered European football that year. This competition was one Real Madrid had been chasing for almost a decade, as they were in search of La Decima, which meant their 10th Champions League title. In the group stage, they were electric, with Ronaldo breaking the record for the most group stage goals ever with 9. Come the round of 16, and they battered Schalke in the first leg 6-1 with a brace from Bale, Benzema, and Ronaldo, and then a 3-1 second leg victory meant a comfortable run to the quarterfinals. They were drawn against Borussia Dortmund, the previous year's finalists, and despite a calm 3-0 victory in the first leg, they were beaten 2-0 away from home, but that was enough for them to win the tie on the whole, sending them to the semis, where things should have been way harder than they were. They faced Bayern Munich, the title holders, and finished the first leg 1-0 with a cowering Benzema goal, but when they traveled away for the return fixture, they turned Bayern into training practice, demolishing them 4-0 with a brace from Ramos and Ronaldo, sending them through to the final to face their city rivals, Atletico Madrid. This game was massive. Real Madrid had lost the league title to them, and they were not going to lose another major trophy. But things were not looking good for Ancelotti's men, because he was the lead scorer in the first half, and were able to hold on this game all the way to the 90th minute, where Real Madrid won a corner, and Sergio Ramos hammered the ball home to send the game to extra time. This last-minute lifeline gave Ancelotti's men the mental boost to shift into gear, as they scored 3 goals from Bale, Marcelo, and Ronaldo to seal the game 4-1 and hand Real Madrid their historic Cup start. No major trophies. Ronaldo had his best season. No major trophies. Ronaldo had his best season ever, scoring 61 goals as he flourished under Ancelotti. But unfortunately, things scoring 61 goals as he flourished under Ancelotti. But unfortunately, things huge and saved them for 2 after 28 match. The core of the squad had actually remained pretty similar to the team he left behind. The core of the squad had actually remained pretty similar to the team he left behind, with Modric, Kroos, Carvajal, Nacho, Isco, Marcelo, Casemiro, and Karim Benzema. But there were also newer, younger players who were in serious need of guidance, with the likes of Vinicius, Rodrigo, Valverde, and Militao in the team. There was also Vinicius, Rodrigo, Valverde, and Militao in the team. There was also a new goalkeeper in Thibaut Courtois, and some heavy deadweight in Eden Hazard, but Ancelotti had a vision for this team. He made a marquee signing in Eduardo Camavinga and brought in Alaba from Bayern Munich, and the team was set for season 1. Before this year kicked off, there were doubts over Real Madrid and what they could achieve. They'd been underperforming for years and were basically counted out in all competitions, but come the end of the season, these doubters would be proved oh so wrong. The biggest difference from his first stint
Let's show foods. Welcome to
who scored over 50 goals per season. But luckily this year, he also bagged a goal that game, which was a sign of what was to come. But from the moment Carlo arrived, everything changed for him and would get better season after season. They started the Champions League campaign with a rather rocky defeat to Sheriff in the group stage, but then the team switched back on and won the remaining 5 group games with Benzema, Vinicius Jr., and Rodrigo all on fire. Come January of that season, they also sat top of La Liga, holding a 2-point lead over second-place Sevilla. But even more interestingly than that, they sat 11 points off Atletico and 12 points off Barca, who sat in 4th and 5th place as they were both underperforming. From this position, they never really did slip in the league, and they eventually finished comfortably in 1st place with a 13-point lead, having it wrapped up in April of that year. But as much as they dominated the league, there was a second prize they were interested in, and there was truly magic going on in Madrid this season because they couldn't be stopped in Europe. They faced PSG in the round of 16, where Kylian Mbappe scored the only goal in the first leg to win the game 1-0 for Paris. Come the second leg, Mbappe scored early, and by the 60th minute, Real Madrid were trailing 2-0. But this is when Karim Benzema turned on the gas, scoring a hat-trick within 20 minutes to end the tie 3-2, and send Los Blancos to the next round, where things would be just as dramatic. They faced up against Chelsea, who were the current title holders, and Karim Benzema scored yet another hat-trick in the first leg to close the game 3-1. Chelsea scored 3 goals in the second leg, which would have put them through, but in the 80th minute, Rodrigo stepped up to send the game to extra time, where a 96th minute goal from Benzema would be enough to send Real Madrid to the semi-finals for somehow an even more dramatic fixture. This time, they faced off against Man City, and this Man City versus Real Madrid matchup is one that would be pivotal in this era, as whoever won this game over the next 3 years would go on to win the whole tournament, as they were clearly the 2 best teams in all of Europe. This first leg saw a 4-3 thriller of a game where Benzema scored a brace and Vinicius scored the third, as Real Madrid were heading to the Bernabeu trailing by a goal. As the second leg kicked off, which meant until the whistle blew, anything could happen. In the 90th minute, Benzema played the ball across to Rodrigo to make it a 1-goal deficit, and then, 1 minute later, Rodrigo cropped up once again to send the game to extra time in one of the most heroic performances in Champions League history. 6 minutes into extra time, Karim Benzema was fouled in the box. A penalty was given, and of course, Benzema converted it, and Real Madrid held out this lead till the final whistle, sending them to the final to play against Liverpool. Now this game was a bit less dramatic than the previous, with only 1 goal in it coming from Vinicius Jr. in the 59th minute, which proved to be enough for Ancelotti's men as they held out and were crowned European champions in just his first season back. This year was all about Karim Benzema, as he finished the season with 43 goals, landing him a Ballon d'Or. But this entire Madrid team were onto something special, having been counted out at the start of the season and now being crowned champions of Spain and Europe, and after some cigars and celebrations, they were back to work for the next season because this team was only just getting started. Carlo Ancelotti entered his second season back in Madrid now as the most successful coach in Champions League history with 4 medals to his name. He had also turned a toxic team with a lot of negativity into a team with passion, friendship, and a vision, and he was still adding more pieces to this puzzle as he signed Rudiger and Tchouaméni, bringing more young talent into the squad, whilst also shifting out more of the old guard in Marcelo, Isco, Bale, and Casemiro. Ancelotti's men started first Clasico and topped their Champions League group, and things looked like they were going to be a repeat of the previous previous season, but this is when things began to go a bit wrong for them. The World Cup broke up the season in December, and this halted their momentum as, when they returned, they couldn't find a strong vein of form. In the league, they couldn't go more than 2 wins in a row, leading to an eventual 10-point gap off first-place Barcelona. In the Champions League, they made their way to the semi-final, but this time round, Manchester City got the better of them with a 5-1 aggregate defeat. But despite this, they still won the Copa del Rey and the Club World Cup throughout the season, proving not to be a total failure. And anyway, the team was young, and it was clear there was a vision here. So, heading into the 23-24 season, things would get taken to a whole new level. As the season began, Karim Benzema bid the club farewell after leading the team for the previous 2 years under Ancelotti, and the replacement to be the best striker in the world was a shock to everyone as Real Madrid signed Joselu, a nobody striker. But little did the Madridistas know that he would save their whole season come the end of it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Ancelotti also finally got rid of Eden Hazard and offloaded Marco Asensio too. So at this point, only 4 players remained from his first stint in charge, those being Modric, Kroos, Carvajal, and Nacho. But boy, were these men reliable. The new Galactico strategy also continued as Real kept signing the best young talents in all of Europe, bringing in Arda Güler, Brahim Diaz back from loan, and then arguably the best young player in the world, Jude Bellingham, for 100 million euros. Now, very few men are able to arrive in Real Madrid at such a young age for such a large price tag and thrive. But with the team and the environment Ancelotti had built, Bellingham exceeded all expectations, winning the La Liga Player of the Month in his first month and scoring goals for fun as a midfielder. The season was put into doubt early on as Thibaut Courtois tore his ACL, but this wouldn't prove to be too much of an issue as the season progressed, as the backup keeper Lunin was ready to step up. On the 28th of October, the first Clasico was played, and Jude Bellingham scored 2 to give Real a late comeback, and this Rolls Royce start happening in the Champions League as well, as Real Madrid finished the group stage with a perfect 6 wins as they simply looked unstoppable. At this point, Carlo Ancelotti signed a 3-year contract extension, and the future was looking bright in Madrid as he transformed this team from a one-man band with Cristiano in 2014 to Benzema the previous seasons to a real collective, with goals being spread amongst Bellingham, Vinicius, Rodrigo, and even Joselu. As the league campaign progressed, neither Barcelona nor Atletico Madrid really posed a threat, with only the unlikely Girona pushing Real at the start, but they would fall away in the second half of the season until the 4th of May came around, where Real Madrid were crowned La Liga champions for the second time in 3 years. They also won the Spanish Super Cup against Barcelona, as Vinicius Jr. scored a hat-trick in that game, but as per usual, Real Madrid saved their most iconic moments of magic for the Champions League campaign. So, let's walk through it. The round of 16 saw a tough 2-legged battle against Leipzig, where Real Madrid won the tie 2-1 thanks to Vinicius Jr. and Brahim Diaz, but as has become tradition, Real Madrid faced Manchester City in the quarterfinals of the tournament, and this was the closest game they had ever played, as the first leg finished square with 3 goals each, and so did the second leg with only 1 goal apiece, meaning they set into a penalty shootout. Despite Modric missing the first penalty, Real Madrid managed to survive thanks to the heroics of goalkeeper Lunin, and for the 3rd year in a row progressed to the semi-finals, where they faced off against Bayern Munich. A brace from Vinicius saw a 2-2 draw in the first leg, and then come the second leg, Real Madrid were trailing with 2 minutes left on the clock, but this is when the unlikeliest of heroes stepped up. In the 88th minute, Joselu scored, and then in the 91st minute, Joselu scored again to send Real Madrid through to the Champions League final in yet another dramatic European night. Real Madrid faced off against Borussia Dortmund, and unlike 3 years prior, this time they were the clear favorites. Borussia were the more dangerous side in the first half, but they couldn't finish their chances, and come the 74th minute, Carvajal punished them, and then just 10 minutes later, Vinicius Jr. sealed the game with his second Champions League final goal, as he put on one hell of a performance that game. Real Madrid lifted their second Champions League trophy in 3 years, and their third under Ancelotti, and this was so significant in so many ways. First, it was Toni Kroos's final game of football, as he made the decision to retire at the very top, as he was now the player with the most Champions League wins in history, tied with 3 of his teammates in Modric, Nacho, and Carvajal. And secondly, Carlo Ancelotti now had lifted the Champions League trophy 7 different times, 2 as a player and 5 as a manager, which is the most in the history of the competition. This season ended with the goals evenly split among amongst the entire attack, with 24 to Vini, who finished as the Champions League Player of the Season, 23 to Jude, who finished as the La Liga Player of the Season, 18 to the unlikely hero Joselu, 17 to the underrated Rodrigo, and 12 to the star in the making, Brahim Diaz. The scary thing about this team is that it is so extremely young, and entering the next season, it got a whole lot scarier as Kylian Mbappe became the latest superstar to join the Real Madrid ranks, meaning they now boast a front four of Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, and Bellingham. And so far into the 24-25 season, it doesn't look like they're having any issues with the massive egos, all because they fall under the Don Carlo Ancelotti, who has cultivated a team of friendship over a team of egos as he's turned a failing Real Madrid side into the best team in Europe for the second time in his career. What a manager! In 2007, Pep Guardiola was nothing more than a youth academy coach, having never managed a senior team before. He transferred a record, created a style of football that changed the game forever, and turned a little Argentinian into the greatest football player on the planet. But how on earth did he do it? How did an unproven manager turn a struggling Barcelona into an unstoppable machine? This is the story of how Pep Guardiola's Barcelona became the greatest football team of all time and destroyed everyone in their path.
The swinger. Lionel Messi! Pep Guardiola beats Sir Alex Ferguson.
Manager began in 2008. That's not where the relationship with the club began. So, to understand that, we have to go back to the very beginning, because on the 18th of January 1971, Josep Guardiola, or Pep as we know him, was born in Catalonia, and by the age of 13, he joined La Masia, Barcelona's famous youth academy, where he was quickly recognized for his intelligence and vision on the field. Pep rose the ranks at Barcelona, and he played as a central midfielder with a very distinct style. He wasn't the fastest or the most physically dominant, but he had the gift of understanding the game better than anyone else, a key feature which will always make him stand out later on in his career. In 1990, he was finally promoted to the first team by the icon himself, Johan Cruyff, who was a huge influence on him both as a player and later on as a coach. And under Cruyff, Guardiola became a key part of Barca's dream team, with the likes of Stoichkov, Laudrup, and Koeman becoming the side that won Barcelona's first ever Champions League in 1992 and 4 successive Spanish League titles from 1991 to 2001, and continued to end his career with a trophy cabinet consisting of 6 La Liga titles, 2 Copa del Reys, and a European Cup. Pep would then take his first steps into coaching in 2007 when the Barcelona president Juan Laporta and director of football Chiqui Begiristain were considering new candidates to manage Barcelona B. And even though Pep Guardiola had no coaching experience, his deep understanding of Barcelona's philosophy, his intelligence on the field, and his natural leadership skills impressed them and made him the standout candidate. Despite having left the club over a decade ago, Guardiola remained close to Barcelona as he studied. Did you know that since 2009, 80 different football clubs have taken part in the Champions League? But yet in more than half of those seasons, the trophy went home with either Barcelona or Real Madrid, as these two clubs have dominated the sport. But how are they so good? How do both of these clubs keep coming back year after year with the best players, teams, and coaches? So, starting with Guardiola's Barcelona and ending with Ancelotti's second Real Madrid side, we're going to see the entire story of how these two clubs consistently broke football for 16 years straight. In 2007, Pep Guardiola was nothing more than a youth academy coach, having never managed a senior team before. But just 1 year later, he was given a shot as the Barcelona manager, and within just 1 season, he transformed them into arguably the greatest football team of all time, winning 6 trophies in that year alone. In his 4 years there, he broke record after record, created a style of football that changed the game forever, and turned a little Argentinian into the greatest football player on the planet. But how on earth did he do it? How did an unproven manager turn a struggling Barcelona into an unstoppable machine? This is the story of how Pep Guardiola's Barcelona became the greatest football team of all time and destroyed everyone in their path.
The swinger, and shot on the goal! Still Lionel Messi! Pep Guardiola beats Sir Alex Ferguson for the second time in 2 years.
Now, whilst Pep's journey with Barcelona as a man reached 19th Academy with distinct style, he was influence on him both as a player, becoming the side that won Barcelona's first ever Champions League in 1992 and 4 successive Spanish League titles from 1991 to 1994. Pep Guardiola's playing career with stints in Italy at Brescia and Roma, then moved to Al Ahly in Qatar, and finally joined Dorados in Mexico, where he would end his career with a trophy cabinet consisting of 6 La Liga titles, 2 Copa del Reys, and a European Cup. Pep would then take his first steps into coaching in 2007 when the Barcelona president Juan Laporta and director of football Chiqui Begiristain were considering new candidates to manage Barcelona B. And even though Pep Guardiola had no coaching experience, his deep understanding of Barcelona's philosophy, his intelligence on the field, and his natural leadership skills impressed them and made him a strong candidate. Despite having left the club over a decade ago, Guardiola remained close to Barcelona as he can't wait to say with the aim of reintroducing a high-intensity, possession-based style that matched Barcelona's DNA. So, in 2007, Pep Guardiola was announced as the Barcelona B coach, and his debut was nothing short of a huge success since Barcelona B, who had been struggling in Spain's 4th-tier division, showed major improvement under Guardiola, winning the league and securing promotion to the Segunda División B, Spain's 3rd tier. Now, whilst Pep was managing the Barcelona B team, it was Frank Rijkaard who was in charge of the senior squad, and things were not going too well. In the 2007-2008 season, they finished 3rd in La Liga and got knocked out of both the Champions League and the Copa del Rey in the semi-finals, proving a nightmare season in Qatar. So he was the hottest manager around at the time, and this deal almost went through right up until one man blocked it. Johan Cruyff urged the board to opt for Pep Guardiola instead. He believed that Pep's history with the club, along with his great success with the B team, made him the perfect candidate to take charge. Cruyff saw something in Pep that not many others did at the time, as he was just a young and unproven coach. But despite this, the Barcelona board listened and opted for Guardiola over Mourinho, which would prove to be one of the greatest decisions the club has ever made. But this decision would also mean the club made an enemy out of Jose Mourinho, and this rivalry was one that would get extremely heated over the coming years. But for now, Pep Guardiola was at the wheel heading into the 2008-2009 season with the goal of taking Barcelona back to glory. And boy, did he deliver. Now, despite underperforming last season, this was not a bad Barcelona team at all. Just a couple of years before this, they lifted the Champions League trophy with a prime Ronaldinho at the epicenter of the team, and entering the 08-09 season, the squad consisted of stars like Messi, Henry, Xavi, Iniesta, and Puyol. They weren't lacking talent, they just lacked direction, and Pep was about to change everything. Guardiola made instant, bold decisions by heavily reshaping.
Evil Morty may just be the most powerful character in Rick and Morty, even stronger than Rick himself. But how did he become so powerful? Well, I'm about to answer that, and go over every important event which shaped him into who he really is. Because although we call him Evil Morty, is he truly evil or not? Well, let me tell you the story of a young boy who was forced to go to extreme lengths in order to obtain true freedom, and cover his journey of breaking free from the control of others. It's a story of desire for change, as well as one of revenge. Together, we'll see what can be done when you recognize the tree in the series is when Rick comes across him in Season 1, Episode 10, titled Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. In this episode, Rick is brought to the Citadel and is accused of killing 27 other Ricks from other dimensions, but he claims he didn't do it and goes on a mission to find the real killer. This leads him to an evil lair with countless Mortys strapped to the outside of it, being put through agonizing pain. While in the lair, the owner of it captures both Rick and Morty. He is known as Evil Rick. During this, we get to see Evil Morty for the first time, while he stands at the side of Evil Rick as his sidekick. Evil Rick then straps Rick C-137 to a table and tells him that he is going to scan his brain to steal his knowledge and then end his life. And while this is going on, Evil Morty brings Morty to a prison cell with tons of other Mortys. As he's being put in the cell, Morty suggests that they rescue all the other Mortys together, but Evil Morty says this to him.
It would be pointless. Mortys have no chance of defeating a Rick.
Not so fast, Evil Morty. That's not exactly true. Because after a motivating speech from our Morty, all the Mortys in the prison decide to come together and overthrow Evil Rick by escaping the prison and then defeat him by piling on top of him. While this is happening, Evil Rick says this.
Do your worst, you little b****s! Kill me! Do it! Do it!
It does seem weird that he would want this, and I'll explain why he does soon enough. So stay tuned for that. After Evil Rick is defeated, members of the Citadel come to take all of the Mortys away from the lair. What's gonna happen to all these Mortys?
They'll go back to their families, attend school regularly, play video games, date girls. Poor little Rickless bastards.
And while investigating Evil Rick's body, 2 Ricks from the Citadel find out that he was being remotely controlled, and one mentions how he's seen the tech before.
This Rick was being controlled remotely, puppeteered by somebody else. This is the receiver. Yeah, but where's the transmitter?
It turns out that Evil Morty was the one behind it, and that he was doing it all from tech in his eye patch. So I guess he did know that Ricks can be defeated, but had to keep his cover when speaking with Morty. He then destroys the eye patch so he can blend in with all the other Mortys boarding the spaceships to be brought back to where they belong. But why would Evil Morty do this? Why take control of a Rick and do all of these horrible things to these Mortys, as well as kill 27 Ricks? Well, if we dive into his backstory, which takes place before these events, it would seem the answer is because of a want for freedom, as well as revenge. In Season 7, Episode 5, titled Unmort Rickin', we get to see some events of Evil Morty's past, where he himself is complaining to his Rick about the fact that they just went on yet another adventure where he went up a butt. That being a regular type of adventure for them definitely doesn't sound fun. Evil Morty also brought back crystals from this same adventure. Maybe these crystals could be death crystals? Which are crystals that allow you to see future ways you'll die based off of the present moment. We see such crystals in Season 4, Episode 1, titled Edge of Tomorty Rick Die Rick Pete. If these are death crystals, maybe Evil Morty got to see countless deaths of his which were caused by Rick, but whether they are or aren't death crystals, this particular adventure really seemed to set Evil Morty off, and led him to get super mad at his Rick after it, and call him a giant 8-year-old. Then after he says this to his Rick, it causes an argument which makes him mad. Even though he may not show it, Evil Morty has become done with everything different Ricks have put him through at this point, and he's going to do something about it. So he responds to this argument by offering his Rick a drink and then heading to his room to work on making the eye patch from earlier. By the time he's done making the eye patch, his Rick has become drunk. So Evil Morty takes advantage of this and hijacks control of him, then installs the tech to remote control him into his brain. Rick's control over him tired him out, so he decided to be the one in control now. Right after this, we see him take Rick to a Morty adoption agency on the Citadel, but this Rick now has a scar on his mouth. Interesting. Because the Rick which he took control of didn't have this scar. Now you could say that the scar came from Evil Morty installing the device into him. But why would that cause a mouth scar, considering that the device was installed into his brain and not around his mouth? If anything, you'd expect him to have scarring on his head. Could this mean that he's controlled more than one Rick? And Evil Rick is a different Rick than the one we saw him get drunk? Potentially, and I'll get into that more very soon. While at the Morty adoption agency, the Rick at the front desk says this to Evil Morty.
An eye patch. You know how we feel about pirates.
This is a reference to Season 3, Episode 10, titled The Rick, Shuri, and Morty Day, where Rick C-137 reveals that he's scared of pirates.
Stand down. He's not afraid of pirates.
Oh, right, Morty. That part was true.
Wow. Well, as a police officer, Rick, who comes to help. Evil Morty hacks into the computer system of the adoption agency and deletes his file from their records. This is a major step towards a more free life for himself, as he most likely does this so no more Ricks can keep adopting him and treating him poorly, because he's already had more than one Rick treat him poorly. As well, an interesting thing to take note of is that in the picture on his file, he appears to be sad and frowning, unlike the other Mortys who are smiling. He really is different from the rest, and he's definitely been sick of Rick for a while now. After deleting his file, he begins traveling to different dimensions and ending the lives of a bunch of Ricks, as well as stealing their Mortys. These Ricks are the same ones which the Citadel blamed Rick C-137 for killing. And this is also how he got some of the Mortys which were imprisoned at the Evil Lair in Season 1, Episode 10. While Evil Morty is back at the lair after this, Evil Rick tries to end himself because he has become trapped in his own body and is helpless to the power which Evil Morty has over him. But his efforts are worthless. So this is why he was happy when the rebelling Mortys ended him earlier. Wow. It's clear Evil Morty was very broken to go far enough to do all of this, but it would seem his killing of Rick isn't necessarily completely just for revenge. As every Rick which he killed, he also scanned the brain of and stole their knowledge. But what would he even need all of this knowledge for? Well, he would need it for a grand plan of his, one that would shatter the very structure of reality itself, and provide him a life free from Rick's manipulation and mistreatment. The next steps of this grand plan begin while at the Citadel, after he leaves the evil lair with the multiple Mortys on spaceships. While undercover as a regular Morty, he sees a newspaper in the streets of the Citadel advertising the first ever Citadel election, so he decides to run for president. And in Season 3, Episode 7, titled The Reclantis Mix-Up, we are brought back to his present story, and we get to see the results of this choice to run. It's clear Mortys are underdogs, as even the big news stations of the Citadel make fun of him for running.
It's anyone's race among the Rick candidates, but a certain other candidate should be getting at least one vote for most adorable. Yeah, I think we actually have the audio for his speech here. Oh geez, oh man, I'm gonna lose the election and stuff.
I mean, Mortys have never had any power or influence in such a place as the Citadel, and this is exactly why his campaign manager believes that they should pull out of the race. But Evil Morty disagrees and feels confident about the soon-to-come presidential debate. During the debate, the Ricks who are running alongside him make fun of him, but he stands his ground and gives a speech on how he doesn't see a divide between the Ricks and Mortys of the Citadel, but rather the division he sees is between the Ricks and Mortys who like the Citadel divided and those who don't. He explains how he sees Mortys in schools at the Citadel who are taught by Ricks that all Mortys are the same, because of Ricks feeling threatened by what makes them unique. As well how they give guns to Mortys so they can fight each other in the streets, instead of fighting the real injustice. But also how it's not just the Mortys who are affected. There are also Ricks working in factories who are making a fraction of their boss's salary, even though they are identical people with the same IQ. The Citadel's problem isn't the homeless Mortys or outraged Ricks. The real problem is the Ricks and Mortys who are feeding on the Citadel's death. And then he concludes by saying this.
A message from the Ricks and Mortys that believe in this Citadel to the Ricks and Mortys that don't. You're outnumbered.
After the positive results of this speech, he fires his campaign manager who didn't believe in him, and soon rises to the top of election polls. It is clear he wants to connect to the Ricks and Mortys of the Citadel, and make a difference. Even when asked about who his original Rick is during an interview, he responds by saying how he views every Rick as his Rick. Campaign manager Morty sees this same interview on TV while at a bar after being fired, and a random Rick dressed as a detective hands him secret documents, which cause him fear while watching. So much fear, in fact, that he tries assassinating Evil Morty during his presidential campaigning, but the attempt fails and he is arrested. All while this is going on, we get to see firsthand the issues of the Citadel which Evil Morty mentioned in his campaign speech, such as when a Morty police officer vaporizes an entire house full of criminal Mortys, rather than giving them a fair trial. And his response when asked about it by his partner, who's a Rick, is this.
What happened? Same old story. Morty's killing Mortys.
After this event, the same Morty cop is shown trying to take a bribe from a crime boss Morty, but his partner stops him from doing so and tells him that he's under arrest, which causes a shootout with the crime boss. The Morty cop then shoots the crime boss after capturing him, because he doesn't want him to talk about the bribe, and then tries to shoot his partner Rick as well, which causes him to get shot by this Rick. While getting arrested after this incident, when the Rick cop is asked what happened, he says this.
Same old story. Rick's killing Mortys.
Wow, it's very clear the extent which Mortys are victims on the Citadel. Mortys view the default narrative as Mortys killing Mortys.
Same old story. Morty's killing Mortys.
And Ricks view the default narrative as Ricks killing Mortys.
Same old story. Rick's killing Mortys.
We even get to see another example of the truth of Evil Morty's political debate speech involving the mistreatment of Mortys, when we are shown Mortys in a school being brainwashed by their teacher, who's a Rick.
This is a great adventure.
This is a great adventure.
I love being your new Morty.
And then some of these same Mortys are discussing their theories on
Hello,
what
hvad ser vi? Vi ser Rick and
all the places it
Morty.
could possibly lead to. But one of them named Slick says this.
Yeah, I bet it goes nowhere.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Some people survive trauma, others become it.
Your father who used your armpit for an ashtray, your mother who never did anything to stop him, or maybe you miss that insect-ridden group home that drove you to my doorstep.
Joe Goldberg was never just a hopeless romantic. He was a manufactured mind, raised on pain, refined by obsession.
Wage war with your ugly picture. That is what you do.
Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me you do. Tell me. Tell me.
If you know what I know.
Every woman he loved became a symbol of redemption, of control, of something he needed to fix.
Who would you be if you didn't have anyone you love? Quit asking me that.
She is.
What did you lose that makes you chase love so much? But what happens when the mask slips? When love turns lethal?
You are not special. You're broken. It's not about you. Run there, you psychotic asshole.
Was he just a product of his upbringing? Or is he really and truly just pure evil?
So you felt deep down, therefore you're capable of doing great damage.
And for the one, I would do anything.
Joe Goldberg.
Joe Goldberg's origin story is steeped in trauma. He was born into a volatile, abusive, and emotionally unstable environment. Conditions known in developmental psychology as complex trauma, or CPTSD, which occurs when a child is repeatedly exposed to hurt, betrayal, and neglect by primary caregivers. And for Joe, the abuse from his father was like torture.
Pain is an irrefutable truth.
His mother, Sandy, wasn't the greatest either. I mean, it's unfortunate that she also had to suffer the abuse of Joe's father, and therefore started stepping out and cheating with other men. But in doing so, she started being a neglectful mother and abandoned Joe. There were times where she would just leave him in public to go and do what she was doing, which messed with Joe's emotions.
We should get a place in time.
You're single.
It's complicated.
I'm going out of town tomorrow, but I could take you out tonight.
Tonight doesn't work. How about now?
It seems like you've got your hands full already.
Oh, he's a big boy. I'm gonna need you to stay here for a bit. Read your book. I'll be back.
He loved his mother and wanted to be with her and protect her, especially from his father. But her love was inconsistent and oftentimes missing. But then there would be a moment that potentially changed everything. Sandy showed Joe that she had a gun in the closet that she said she would eventually use to kill his father.
He's never gonna hurt us again. Ever. Do you hear me?
This was far from harmless, and would be what psychologists would call parental enmeshment, or in this case, maternal enmeshment, which occurs when a mother becomes overly involved in a child's life, hindering their independence and autonomy, often stemming from unmet needs or past traumas. But the problem here is Sandy drawing him into adult conflicts far beyond his emotional capacity at that age. For Joe, his childhood and relationships with his parents created a disorganized attachment style, a blend of anxiety, fear, and a desperate need of love. Children raised this way crave closeness but are also terrified of it. It's the most chaotic and dangerous form of attachment, often linked to personality disorders and violent relational patterns later on in life. Joe was conditioned from the start to associate love with pain. This instilled an unconscious belief that intimacy must be controlled or corrected. Later in life, this manifests as domination masked as protection. However, instead of Sandy having to use the gun, it would be Joe who has to pull the trigger to protect his mother from another one of his dad's beatings, killing him.
Get off of me! Fucking line! Stop! Tell me his fucking name! Get away from me! Let go of me! Crazy!
His mother would tell him that he was a good boy for doing what he did, as he was only protecting her, and this would change everything in his mind. That early exposure to murder, framed as moral and being a good boy, builds the foundation for future desensitization and justification of violence. Joe doesn't just become numb to killing, he learns to associate it with love and duty. And although he probably understands murder is wrong from a societal view, he still justifies the innocence in doing it if he believes he's protecting someone he loves. It teaches him if harm is done for the right reasons, it's not evil. And this is the first step towards moral detachment. Although Joe would protect his mother out of love, she wouldn't reciprocate this affection. Shortly after the killing, she put him in a group home. Even if she had good intentions, to Joe this was straight up abandonment. Despite what he did for her, she just left him. And not only was the person he loved gone, but the place she left him wasn't much better than his home was when his dad was around. He gets bullied by the other kids, But what shapes him most is not just the suffering, it's watching others suffer and being powerless to stop it. A nurse who worked there became someone Joe bonded with. However, he would find out that she was in an abusive relationship, and this reminded him of the situation with his parents. However, with it not being his own family, he felt he couldn't do anything to help, and then blamed himself for not doing so when she later stopped coming to the group home, assuming the worst had happened to her. His bond with the abused nurse deepens his savior complex, or what people refer to as white knight syndrome, which is a psychological pattern where someone feels a strong need to save or fix other people's problems, sometimes at the expense of their own well-being. For Joe, this white knight syndrome would lead to deadly consequences. He developed hyper-empathy for women in pain, especially those who resemble his mother, and this might not seem like a bad thing, but when combined with that desensitization and justification of violence, it meant that in order for him to save these women, he wasn't afraid to kill later down the line, and then use this justification of saving these women. Combine this with his abandonment trauma from his mother's departure, Joe is now primed for the idea that once he finds love, he must control it, trap it, and eliminate any threats to it, because love is always on the verge of leaving. It's safe to say that without a doubt, it was Joe Goldberg's childhood that made him a monster. As a young man, Joe would be taken in by a bookstore owner named Ivan Mooney. He became Joe's guardian and helped guide him through his teenage and young adult years. However, Mr. Mooney wasn't fully a breath of fresh air for Joe, as he too would continue the abuse that Joe couldn't escape from.
I've been stupid to be mad. I messed up. And you're trying to help me do better.
I know it's hard to understand. It's hard. Why when I failed, you locked me in? I did. Because I love you.
Mr. Mooney's abuse is perhaps the most important influence on his adult pathology. Mooney feeds him, educates him, a child being molded through emotional deprivation, and reward punishment structures that warp their ability to distinguish love from manipulation. Joe might have thought that Mooney's control was genuinely out of love and a desire to help, but it was nothing more than, well, control. So later in Joe's relationship, the glass cage becomes a metaphor for Joe's adult relationships: contain, observe, control, and punish. Later in life, Joe cages people not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically, wounded in the worst ways possible. He dated a woman named Candace Stone. However, something somewhere went wrong, and she would end up cheating on him.
Who's Elijah?
Give me my phone, Joe.
It's not your brother, you know that.
Give me my phone back.
Is Elijah going to be there?
Don't start this again. It's just business, Joe.
For you, it is. Guys like this are predatory.
Unable to process this betrayal like a healthy adult, and being emotionally unstable, Joe killed this man that she was cheating with, did what he could to re-establish control, even in a situation he's clearly lost control of. This is where obsessive love disorder, revenge fantasy, and covert sadism begin to blend. It doesn't do his psychology any favors when Mooney hears about what he did and actually reinforces the behavior, telling him what he did was okay.
Some people deserve to die. I'm sure you had your reasons.
Joe Goldberg's descent begins not with any single one of his traumatic events, but with the relentless, layered abuse that shaped his view of relationships. He never learned how to love, only how to trap, protect, and punish those he loves for their inevitable betrayal. He was raised in a world where control was love, punishment was discipline, and abandonment was normal. This forged a man who could not simply love, he had to possess, and this would be evident in his relationship with Guinevere Beck. Joe, who is now working in Mooney's bookstore, becomes obsessed with her as soon as he meets her in the bookstore. He finds out what he can about her through her social media, and then he starts physically stalking her wherever she went, even including looking through her windows in her home.
The next thing our little friend Internet gave me was your address. There it is, with its big, naked windows. Nice, very nice. Like in subsidized school housing. Jesus, it's like you've never seen a horror movie or the news.
In the show, we get to hear Joe's thoughts out loud, and it seems Joe views stalking not as invasive, but as a gesture of love. This isn't merely obsession. It's what psychologists would call erotomania, a delusional disorder where one believes someone else is in love with them, or would be if obstacles were removed. And also with the way he narrates things during the stalking and their encounters, it's like he believes he's the lead in some sort of fantasy romance novel, seeing every natural interaction as some glorified event having an underlying meaning. He doesn't fall in love with real women, he falls for a version he constructs in his mind. And when he does twisted things, like the stalking or going through Beck's phone, he tends to say, "I'm doing this for her," which justifies unethical actions as noble if they serve his fantasy. He also carries out a slick but dark form of mind control, often used in the real world. By finding out Beck's secrets through stalking her social media and in real life, he tailors his personality to be that perfect match that she never saw coming. If you know everything about someone, it's much easier to shapeshift and play a character to make them fall for you, and Joe does this effortlessly. Joe's manipulation isn't loud, it's calculated. He presents himself as the ideal man, only to quietly erode his partner's boundaries over time, and he has a few dark psychology tactics to get away with this. One is mirroring. He adopts Beck's values, interests, and literary passions to appear soul connected. Imagine being interested in something really niche, and someone comes along and shares that interest. You're going to feel that spark brewing, which is what Joe wants. Then there's the gaslighting when he denies reality when Beck senses that something is off, such as him following her and lying about his past. And he twists the story and makes it seem like Beck is stupid for assuming so. But this whole thing is really just an example of dark psychological seduction, manipulating someone's emotional vulnerability and trauma, in this case Beck's abandonment issues, to install yourself as their savior. Emotionally, he was already a monster, but what he'd end up doing physically only cemented this. During his time knowing Beck, Joe would kill a total of 4 people. His first was a man named Benji. Benji was sleeping with Beck before Joe got to know her properly, making him an obstacle in Joe's path to finding love, something he wasn't willing to lose. He manipulated Benji and lured him into the bookstore before attacking him and locking him in the glass cage in the basement. He held Benji captive for a few days, then killed him by giving him coffee laced with peanut oil, from which Benji would suffer a fatal allergic reaction.
It's not her.
Tell me.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry what you did to her. Anyone was it? Just you. 2 tablespoons of peanut oil.
The body was disposed of, and Joe progressed his relationship with Beck with one obstacle down. But then another would arise, Peach Salinger, one of Beck's closest friends. When Beck started seeing Joe, Peach tried her best to get in the way. She looked down on Joe for being a broke bookstore worker, and through Joe's stalking and detective work, he discovered that Peach had been manipulating Beck for years, stalking her, controlling her, even taking nude photos of her when she slept. In Joe's mind, she too was preventing him from finding love, so she had to go. He believed that he was saving Beck from a toxic friend, while simultaneously saving himself from abandonment. The next victim wasn't about removing an obstacle, but about delivering justice. Joe had a young neighbor named Paco, a boy raised in a troubled home. His mother Claudia was in an abusive relationship with her boyfriend Ron. Over time, Joe became someone Paco could confide in. He gave him advice, introduced him to books, and tried to make him feel safe. This was one of the only people Joe showed genuine kindness to, without a manipulative end goal, highlighting the potential he might have had deep down. But despite all the guidance, Paco couldn't escape Ron's wrath. He even brutally attacked Joe once before. So one day, when Joe saw Paco in danger, he killed Ron. He reassured Paco, "You're safe now." This moment mirrored Joe's own childhood. A violent man in the house, things becoming too dangerous, and Joe having to kill to protect someone he loves. He had truly internalized that lesson. He disposed of the body and told Paco to keep it a secret. And while this murder might have felt noble, maybe even heroic, the next one was the complete opposite. Beck had grown suspicious of Joe. She dug into his past and uncovered the disappearance of his ex,